Welcome to the Sleep is a Skill podcast. My name is Molly McLaughlin, and I own a company that optimizes sleep through technology, accountability, and behavioral change. Each week, I'll be interviewing world-class experts ranging from doctors, innovators, and thought leaders to give actionable tips and strategies that you can implement to become a more skillful sleeper. Let's jump into your dose of practical sleep training. Welcome to the Sleep is a Skill podcast. My guest today is, I think, a really timely one considering what is happening on the planet as it relates to social distancing and our attempts to really keep people safe during this pandemic. And what tends to happen when you're dealing with a surge of uncertainty and fear all at once? Well, for many of us, we tend to lose sleep. So here at Sleep is a Skill, we promote the concept of something we refer to as your bookends. So how you start your day and how you end your day are really important things to pay attention to in order to ensure that you're setting yourself up powerfully to get great sleep. Now, my guest happens to be a bit of an expert in this and has grown quite a following, really examining the often unexamined ways that we both start and end our day. So Ksenia Avdulova is a public speaker, founder of the award-nominated digital platform Breakfast Criminals, and host of Woke and Wired podcast, focusing on expanded consciousness and entrepreneurship in the digital age. Named 35 Under 35 in Wellness by Wonderlust and Fashion World's most in-demand breakfast chef by My Recipes, a Time Inc. company, Ksenia shares the power of rituals, mindful nourishment, and conscious social media. All right. Well, welcome to the Sleep is a Skill podcast. I am so grateful to have my friend Ksenia here from Breakfast Criminals with us to share her, just loads of knowledge. And particularly, we're honing in on the area of sleep with her today. Thank you so much for being here.
Molly, I'm so excited to be here. When I started making a list of all the little rituals and hacks that I've learned over the years of being in this crazy wellness world, I just realized how many things I have under my belt that I can share with people. So I'm stoked to be here.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, I know you have a busy schedule and a busy and very exciting life that you've put together for yourself where you're, hopping all over the globe. So the fact that we're able to pin you down for a little bit of time is really wonderful. And I do want to also say that I'm particularly excited to have you here because part of what I'm always struck with by you, I've been following you for a long time now. And one of the things that I love that you do, which feels to me very synergistic with what I'm doing with Sleep is a Skill, is I feel like you have this magical ability to really make the unexamined these processes that we do every day, all of us wake up and we have some sort of morning routine, whether it's by design or not. And all of us have some sort of evening routine, whether it's by design or not. But I think you have this awesome quality to be able to make these rituals magical and new again and just breathe new life and kind of have us all take a second to consider what we're doing or what we're not doing in these areas to bring about wellness in a new way. So can't wait to dive in on all those things with you. But to begin, let's just go deeper on, first of all, just how you even came to be, just a quick shot of your story of how you became such a leader in the wellness space.
Wow, that's a great question. Let's start with the fact that I run a platform that is centered around morning rituals and self-love and nourishment called Breakfast Criminals. And I am someone who naturally wakes up pretty damn grumpy. So it
I love that.
really
Thank
stemmed
you.
from my own, truth bombs. Why not? It stemmed from my own personal journey of realizing that the world doesn't scream at us with optimization. It has to come from the inside with the intention to feel good, to be present, to feel nourished, and then finding and collecting rituals and practices and recipes that help us feel that way and customizing it to our own lifestyle. So for me, it really started a long time ago when I first got on social media 15 years ago. But Breakfast Criminals, the way it is now, started when I began sharing my own recipes and acai bowls and self-love and mindfulness rituals on Instagram. And I used food as this universal language that would lure people in with its beauty and deliciousness, but then kind of stir the conversation to the things that I'm really passionate about, which is human optimization and purpose and intention, mindfulness and spirituality. So that's how we ended up where we are now.
Such a cool ride. And you create these examples for people online in such a beautiful way. And it does feel really unique and soulful. So it feels very much your own. And in alignment with that, I'd love to go deeper as it relates. So many of the people in our audience are either having difficulty with this ability to kind of calm their minds, they deal with hyper aroused states at night, and, just this sense of, being unable to kind of turn off their brains. And that often, kind of spills over throughout the days. So ways for people listening to be able to tap into that relaxation and that mindfulness and that spirituality that you're speaking to, also within a practical modern world that we're in and all the things we're kind of grappling with. So I would love to hear more about some of those routines that you have been able to create for yourself. Of course, I loved your story, how it began sort of with, the soulfulness connection to, your meals and the beauty in there. And then how it has gone into, some of the ways that I've seen you speak to sleep too, is like, you've got these beautiful elixirs, you've got, kind of this wind down routines, you're playing with things, even, this topic of caffeine and sleep, those go together hand in hand, but you find ways to be mindful about your caffeine intake. There's so much there, right? So to begin, I'd love to hear some of the routines for how you set yourself up powerfully to be able to bring in these moments of calm throughout your day. And we find in our, in our research around sleep that the ability to teach our brains to do that can lend itself to that kind of muscle memory to bring that in later in the evenings. So share a little bit about some of those, how that might look. That can either be throughout the day or specifically in your evening routine. Let us know how that looks for you.
It's such an important question. And disclaimer, I am going to say that I will share some very, very, very practical things you can start implementing right away and seeing crazy results with your sleep and the mood you wake up in. And at the same time, I want to be very real with everyone listening and say that a lot of these things, you don't have to do 10 things at once in your routine. Really find the ones that speak to you, the ones you can afford, the ones you can keep practicing, because sticking to them is what makes a difference, not hopping from one to the other. And I'll also be honest with you, because I travel so much, like yourself, Molly, I'm a digital nomad. Because I travel so much, my routines changed. And it's important to stay gentle with yourself and to adapt to your environment so that you're not just pushing to do something because you think you should. So intuition, use your intuition, use what feels exciting, what feels right. And, some of the things I'll be sharing might be sounding a little out of your range of comfort. So kind of just take it step by step. So the statements that I believe in, one is that how you start your days, how you live your life. That's why a lot of the things I do online are centered around morning rituals. And take that one step further, the second statement is that a great morning begins the night before. We all know that even if we have the most amazing morning routine waiting for us, if you go to bed at 3 a.m. and wake up at 7, no one's going to feel great on 4 hours of sleep. I think I did the math right.
Yes.
I mean, there's lots of research always popping up about sleep and how much we actually need. It's different for everyone, but from what I've heard, in general, between 7 and 8 hours is what's recommended. Molly, I'm sure you've done lots of research on that topic as well. I'm referencing the podcast, Joe Rogan. He had a scientist, a sleep scientist on his podcast. And I very much align with that because me personally, I need 8 hours to function like a normal human. It might be a little bit different for each one, but in terms of those night routines, what I've been able to identify and split it into is 3 different categories of things that really make a difference for your sleep. So number 1 is light. And that goes both to lamps. So making sure that once you start getting ready to go to bed, about 2 hours before bed, you start really switching up the lights to more dim ones. If you have dimmers, perfect. If you have incandescent lighting, that's great. If you have Himalayan salt lamps or candles, that's even better, because lots of the light, it will keep not just through your eyes, but also through your skin. It will keep your whole system way too woke to go to sleep.
Yes.
So dimming those lights is one of the main ways that I indicate to my body that it's time to start winding down. And that goes not only to lamps around you, but also the screens in front of our faces. We all spend so much time in our digital devices, and spending up to last second before you go to sleep on a screen is not optimal. And yet I know for some of us that just what's the reality. So what I would recommend is looking into blue light blocking glasses. The brand that I use, I think I have one yellow pair from True Dark. I have another pair from Blue Blocks. And I know that they very much vary in quality. If you're really ready to invest in something good, I would highly recommend looking into Blue Blocks. And if anyone's curious, I can hook you up with a discount code as well. But there's lots of research showing that those screens, they can have impact on our hormones, on the production of melatonin. So doing whatever we can to reduce that harm can make a huge difference in the quality of sleep that is felt, and the one that's also unfelt and undeterminable for many years to come. So that's step one. Step two is different practices that help your mindset, your body, to really wind down, de-stress, and like you said, feel more calm and relaxed.
Yeah.
So some of the practices in that category are breath. And I actually have been really obsessed with the Wim Hof breathing technique recently.
Me too. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I've been doing it every day, and I started having these crazy lucid dreams, like going to different realms at night. And I got so worried, and I started researching it. And there's lots of people online saying that breathing technique can actually lead to kind of the veil being more thin and visiting interesting places in your sleep, especially if you do it closer to bedtime. So I try to do my breath work, the Wim Hof breath work, in the morning so that I don't get as stimulated before bed. Yep. And the breath that I do recommend doing at night before sleep, especially if you're feeling a little restless, is alternate nostril breathing technique. It really calms down your whole system. You can just Google it. Adriene has a video. There's lots of videos on YouTube. And once you watch it a couple of times, you can do it on your own without a screen. And it really helps slow down your whole system and kind of just get relaxed. Now, another breath you can do is something that I've been doing for many years, especially at times when I'm feeling too hyper or stressed. Is from Dr. Weil, who I just recently had on my podcast, Woke and Wired. And when I asked Dr. Weil, who's one of the most iconic doctors on planet Earth, the father of integrative medicine, when I asked him what's the most important thing for staying healthy and really practicing wellness day to day, he said that the single most effective and important practice that he has ever discovered is the 4-7-8 breath. So the 4-7-8 breath is 4 rounds of breathing in on 4, holding for 7, releasing for 8. Anytime we make our out breath longer than the in breath, that's going to calm down our nervous system. But there's something specifically about this pattern, 4-7-8, done 4 times, twice a day, that according to Dr. Weil just rewires our whole system and makes our lives better. So definitely try that out. I experienced it for myself, that it really helps me calm down at times of stress. And some other practices in that category are movement. I've been just Googling or searching on YouTube sleep time yoga and bedtime yoga, just kind of keeping the lights really dim, not really looking at the screen, but just listening to instructions and stretching my body and winding down and doing some bends and nice relaxing moves that just kind of help me transition in bed. And if you guys want recommendations for any particular practices, you can always reach out to me at Breakfast Criminals on Instagram. Another practice is journaling. I really am a big fan of journaling. I've done some of it over the years, but lately I've re-picked back up journaling every single evening about the things I'm grateful for. And sometimes I just sit down and I think I have one thing to be grateful for, but then like this whole flow state gets unlocked, and I have so many things to reflect on and share and be grateful for. So journaling is a fantastic evening practice of kind of just reflecting on your day, getting intentional and getting present to how much we have accomplished. And Molly, I know that you have an infrared sauna. If I had one, I definitely would go to it every single night before sleep. So if you have access to sauna, especially infrared, it's fantastic. And with that, actually taking a hot bath, a candlelit, especially a hot bath with some essential oils like relaxing lavender oil and Epsom salts, super detoxifying, super relaxing, and scientifically proven to help you sleep better as well. So if you're just like restless and running around and have everything in your mind, first of all, just dump everything from your brain into paper, because a lot of the times what keeps us awake is our to-do lists for the next day. So just write it all out. I use personally the bullet journaling method, and oftentimes I'll open up a page and I not only write goals and to-dos for every week and every month and kind of an overview for a year, but I also write them for every day. And sometimes I go a day ahead and I just dump everything I know I need to do tomorrow just to get it out of my head so that my body and my mind can relax. So that's a little different, or a lot different from gratitude journaling. But I guess those are a couple of journaling techniques that can be super helpful.
Oh, wow. You just like unleashed so many things. I was taking notes as you were speaking. That was awesome. And I even wanted to, just mention one thing, because you just made me think about with the journaling. I have a number of clients that come in and have sleep disturbances. Certainly as we age and in different seasons of our life, we can have even more challenges around our sleep. And journaling, something that even from some of my older clientele that's dealing with things like arthritis and difficulties, so one of the things they'll say is, it can even be painful to do, long form journaling. And one thing that we found as another way to bring in technology to befriend technology is even there's so many transcription journaling options now that have come up. Using things like Otter.ai can be a great one to just speak in all of these things. If you want to do kind of that gratitude shower that you were just kind of speaking to and get in that flow state, if you have difficulty or it doesn't work for you to even just sit and write, more of an analog way, you can just say what there is to say and get that out there. And that can be yet another way that we can bring that in the evenings. That was amazing. I literally have so many notes of all of these things. So I'm left with this experience of intuition as you're speaking too, of just, really testing things and noticing and reworking your routines. And I mean, I would imagine from you, just from following you, that it's not as if your routines stay kind of static. They seem to be dynamic, and you add things in and shift things up, and depending on where you are in the world, move them all around and play with them.
Totally. One of the things that I recently took on and do all the time, because I feel such a difference, is also within that bucket of practices. And it's just putting my legs up the wall at the end of the day, especially if you're someone who walks a lot or who travels a lot. Just literally laying down, putting your legs up the wall. You could be even in bed right before sleep for about 5 to 10 minutes. It just increases your circulation and your blood flow, and just your whole body feels so relaxed. It's something that I've been doing every night, and it makes such a difference. And one of the other things, the third category of things is food. Yeah. And sometimes I look at my own YouTube videos of the previous morning routines and evening routines that I've posted, and I'm like, who is this person? Because you're right, the structure is kind of still similar, but the recipes themselves and my go-to tools, they really change, because I can't just bring the whole arsenal of all my favorite things as I travel. I really have to get picky and minimalist. So in terms of food, and all of the things, I also want to note, all of the things we're talking about in general, the lifestyle you lead, the kind of stress you experience day to day, what you eat, how you work out, generally everything you do outside of sleep is what's going to impact your sleep the most.
Yes.
But the tools and the practices we're talking about, there's something that you can cultivate, even though it's done before bed, mostly right before sleep. It can still make a big difference. So it's not isolated from your whole lifestyle, but it can have a huge impact. So in terms of food, something that I'm personally not crazy sensitive to caffeine, although sometimes when I'm traveling, I do get more sensitive. But a rule of thumb is don't have caffeine, especially coffee, after 3 p.m. so that it doesn't impact your sleep. And also, I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting. So trying to bring my dinner to an earlier time. And I don't usually wake up hungry, so I just kind of prolong that fasting. I drink some water, and then when I'm ready, I make my ceremonial cacao or matcha. And in the evening, instead of just sitting in front of TV and snacking and things up until you go to bed, hey, I've been there, totally done that. Just being intentional. Okay, am I actually hungry or am I just tired? Do I need a breath or do I actually need a whole huge chocolate bar? Like just getting honest with yourself. Tuning into your body, and also finding recipes that help you wind down. So some of the favorite recipes that I turn to is an apple cider vinegar tonic. So hot water, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, a teaspoon of raw honey, and a squeeze of lemon juice. It's so satisfying. It's so calming, and it really does something to your system once again, where it just helps you get sleepy. And if I don't have, like right now, I'm out of apple cider vinegar because I'm not in my house, I just make an herbal tea, maybe with lemon or just hot water with lemon. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. And if you're big into supplements or you want to explore that, some of the ones that I really love at night are, first of all, magnesium powder. So just water with magnesium. It helps not only sleep, but it also helps your digestion. So when you're traveling, especially, it's fantastic.
Yes.
And if you're changing time zones, your body's more confused than that, needs more help, CBD is great. And also melatonin. So those are all the things that I turn to. I'm sure there's more, but these are the main ones that I'm sure that if you try, you will feel a profound difference.
So great. And I also think of you as a bit of an adaptogen expert. I was blown away by some of your resources around, certainly your relationship even to mushrooms. Like you have, of course, now you've become a digital nomad, so it's a little more, you're a bit more all over the globe, but there was a period when you were even growing your own mushrooms. And so you have a whole wealth of knowledge in what we can do to potentially bring some of those in, because there are correlations to utilizing those and then sleep optimization. And so kind of getting a little bit deeper on that topic and some of your favorite adaptogens for these amazing elixirs that you put together. We'd love to hear more about that.
I love that. So CBD is wonderful. Mushrooms, I'm still a huge fan of mushrooms. The ones that are my current go-tos are chaga. I got my hands on some wild-grown Siberian chaga at a monastery while I was in Russia.
Whoa.
So
wow. Normal.
Normal, totally normal. I've been making my evening tea with that, but chaga is now pretty readily available, so you can buy it in a lot of places and online. Just make sure you're thoughtful about what company you're buying it from, and kind of if you can source back where it comes from and what the intention of the founders is. Because with mushrooms, like with a lot of these adaptogens, we really can't know what the quality is. We really don't know the freshness. So I just kind of rely on the humans behind it and try to tune into their intention and how they talk about their work and why they do it. And that's how I personally choose which products I buy, because sometimes we just can't rely on anything else that's said on the website.
Yeah.
So chaga is great for immunity. There's a lot of talk about it right now because it can help raise your immunity if you take it consistently. Lion's mane, I'm a huge fan of lion's mane because it's something that boosts our neurological ability. Mm-hmm. You can bring in all the scientific terms.
Yes.
I'll just say what it is. It really makes you feel clear and it makes you get things done. So when I had a mycologist on my podcast, Woke and Wired, he actually said that if he had to identify one single mushroom that he can recommend for entrepreneurs, it's lion's mane. So lion's mane is also very, very potent for not just raising your immunity, but there's lots of other studies if you want to find out about it. I have it all on breakfastcriminals.com. But there's so many mushrooms, and one of my favorite ways to take them is actually tinctures. So you can buy it as tea, you can buy it as powder. Powder tends to be so intense and tastes so bad. So if you're someone who's not into bad taste, I recommend tinctures. Jason Scott, who was on my podcast, his company is Feral Fungi. And he's someone who, like, he forages some of the mushrooms himself, and then he processes them in an alchemical way on certain days of the week, corresponding with certain planets. So people like that, that's who I love to support and who I really trust when choosing my mushrooms.
It's very wise. Yeah. And kind of doing your homework on who you're willing to not only hand over your money to, but also, what you're going to put into your body on a regular basis and kind of test out from that place. We're big at Sleep is a Skill with testing what's working for you, what's not working for you, but to be able to have those people that are kind of living what they're providing can make a real difference. So that's such good advice. The other thing I wanted to mention, I actually had done a newsletter months back, and I had looked at cacao and cacao ceremonies, and I think it was your YouTube video came up again and again as one of the highest ranking things around cacao ceremonies. And the reason I want to mention this in this conversation is because of the potential. There's still unfortunately not a ton of great studies out there on cacao. It's a more natural product. And so we do have challenges getting really large scale studies on things like this, but there are some interesting thoughts around cacao because of its large source of magnesium within it, even though it does have some caffeine. So I'd love to hear more about how you utilize cacao throughout your days and if you've seen any connection with your sleep.
You're asking me about the topic I'm the most excited about, topic that I actually go to bed thinking about and wake up thinking about.
Amazing.
So I think there's two separate podcasts. One, we can do one on search engine optimization, because yes, when you Google what is cacao ceremony, my post and my YouTube video is what comes up. And I've gotten people from all over the world reach out to me because of that, which is incredible.
Amazing.
And the second one is cacao ceremony and the magic of cacao. And yes, you're right. There's not a ton of studies because there's no pharmaceutical company that can benefit from cacao opening people's hearts, getting people off antidepressants. And it is doing that. I'm not a doctor and I'm not making these statements as medical advice, but factually, there are people I know who got off antidepressants from drinking cacao because what's in it is actually not caffeine, but theobromine, which is like caffeine's cousin. So it's a different molecule. And it gives you that energy, but there is not a slump afterwards. So that's one of the biggest differences. And it does have lots of magnesium, so it does relax your body, but at the same time, it sort of activates your mind and activates your heart. And when done in a ceremonial setting, which is how it's traditionally been used in communities around the world, like the Mayan community in Guatemala, that is considered the guardians of the cacao plant, which is considered a plant medicine, not just a piece of chocolate. When it is consumed in this pure way, usually with some panela, which is pure, I believe, cane sugar, with some Mayan spices, in a way that is intentional, usually in community, when consumed that way, there's something that happens that is beyond words. And I've been sitting in cacao ceremony in community and with myself for almost 2 years, every single day, sometimes more than once a day. I actually had to Google the other day, is it possible that I have ceremonial cacao addiction?
Oh my God, I love it.
I didn't find any great answers. Most of the people,
right. What did you find?
Well, most people who bash cacao, they bash overuse of raw cacao, which is different. And ceremonial cacao is not raw. It's actually roasted and it is processed in just a minimal way, that it's roasted and then it's usually they use like this stone thing to create a paste out of the beans. That's pretty much all that's done to it. And maybe sometimes they grind it and spices to it. But other than that, it's a super pure product. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have much against coffee. I know that sometimes it makes me a little too jittery and excited, especially if I've been off of it for a while. A couple of months ago, I got to hang out with Dr. Weil, and he said that coffee is a hard drug. When people ask him if he drinks coffee, he says, I don't do hard drugs. And that really planted a seed in me and got me thinking. And so just recently, I actually completed the Clean program, which makes you eliminate coffee completely. You're still allowed cacao, you're still allowed matcha and other cleaner sources of caffeine. And I did that. And after those 7 days, I have not wanted coffee since. So I've been off coffee for probably over a month now. I have no cravings, but I do have my cacao cravings. And that said, I would say that cacao is a fantastic coffee alternative. If you're looking for that boost of energy, boost of creativity, definitely look up Cacao Ceremony. I have tons of recipes, and I actually have an online course about cacao ritual and cacao ceremony coming out as well in May 2020.
Oh my God, exciting.
So cacao is really, I think, one of these plants that it's not psychedelic, it's not psychoactive. All it does is kind of like opens the door gently to what you are ready to work with within yourself, to get more present to your heart, to your emotions, to your own creativity. So it can be incorporated in anyone's daily life. And that's what I love the most about it.
Wow, that is amazing. And I share in that kind of exploration around your relationship to coffee and then finding some of these coffee alternatives. I recently did a kind of liver detox. And so for 2 weeks, you don't have any coffee. And I've known myself as such a coffee enthusiast for so many years. So going full off of coffee was a challenging thing for me. And yet once you kind of work that out, then there is just such a different way that you interact with the world around you. And I really, I think there's some real wisdom in that I don't do hard drugs statement. And so, especially as we know what it does with adenosine, which relates to our elements of sleep pressure throughout the day and into the night. And now, they're depending on how quickly you metabolize coffee, not just coffee, but any caffeine, but particularly coffee, you really do want to be mindful of the dosage, the timing, and just even if it even fits in your life anymore at different points throughout your life. So I think that's great to kind of re-examine it and provide this kind of new alternative. I think for a lot of people, for some people, of course, they've heard of this idea of a cacao ceremony and what have you, but I think there's so much opportunity where so many people just have no clue that this could be another thing that they could bring in to their rituals throughout their day. And I love your enthusiasm for it. It's just incredible. And if you guys have any sort of questioning or interest in this topic, absolutely check out Ksenia's video and articles about it, and soon to be course. Naturally, when you search this in Google, she's going to be one of the top ones that come up. So definitely, if you're looking also at SEO, you want to have a look at what she's up to. She's very skilled in this, and there's just so much information and does it in such a beautiful way on this topic. So, and I did have a quick question related to that. Maybe we can provide this in the show notes, but how do you deal, so some of the pushback around cacao is around this idea of heavy metals and your sourcing. Have you found any other people that you really look to, as you did with the lion's mane, that you trust and that you go to for this topic?
100%. Going back to your remark on finding coffee alternatives,
sure.
A couple of years ago, I did this shamanic cleansing, and the shaman prescribed me 3 weeks without coffee or caffeine of any sorts for that matter. And I was at loss. I didn't have any good alternatives to go to. So I've tried it all. Most of them suck and taste terrible.
They do. I know.
It's terrible. I don't even know how they come out with those products, but I do have a list of at least 4 different products and types of products that I can vouch for, that are clean, that are effective, that taste great. So I actually have that post coming up this week on breakfastminerals.com. And one of them is cacao. And so with cacao, the brand that I fell in love with originally, that introduced me to a lot of the things that I know now, who I've traveled to Guatemala with, to the source, to the farms, who I've also studied cacao ceremony traditions and rituals and where it all comes from in a way that really respects the people who have been protecting the plant. Cacao Laboratory is my go-to brand. They're friends. I know there's integrity every step of the way. And if you order it, you can also get a hookup when you use a code Breakfast Criminals. And that said, I'm also, I'm really, one of my missions in the world as a journalist, as a storyteller, is to bring to light different brands and different missions and people that are doing awesome things. So I have another post coming out on breakfastcriminals.com where right now I'm sitting in my kitchen. I have, I think, 7 different cacao brands and probably like 14 different products where I'm really, comparing the experiences, I'm comparing the ingredients so that there's something for everyone at different price points with different ingredients, with and without sugar. So that's coming out if that's something you want to explore as well.
Wow. Well, Ksenia, this is amazing. I was taking so many notes as you were speaking. I really appreciate just all of not only the knowledge that you've acquired over the years of being in this space, but I'm left with an experience that you really are connected to these rituals and these products on your own front, like, distinct from just, oh, this is the latest top one, X, Y, or Z. Like it really, I'm left with this experience that you practice what you preach and that you're really in the game of testing all of these and what works and what doesn't and sharing that information. And so I would love for you to be able to share more about how people can learn more from you and where they can go to be a part of all that you're putting out and all this content, rich information that you have to share.
Thanks, Molly. You hold this space so beautifully. It's fun talking to you.
Well, thank you.
There's many ways you guys can dive deeper into these things we're talking about. Breakfastcriminals.com is the hub where you'll find lots of free content and articles and product recommendations. I also recently launched Breakfast Criminals Society, which is a membership platform. And actually March theme is sleep. So I'm sharing all the resources and links, like even beyond what we talked about here. Great. So yes, Breakfast Criminal Society, join that. There's also live experiences like Cacao ceremonies and experts and meditations. All of that is just starting out and is very, very exciting. And you can be part of defining what it becomes. Then there's awesome. Woke and Wired podcast. So if you're an audio kind of person, definitely check it out. It's about consciousness, entrepreneurship, the new paradigm, spirituality. And I've had awesome people that are founders of some of the companies we're talking about, mycologists, Ayurvedic specialists, all kinds of people. So if you're kind of just generally into personal development in the entrepreneurial and spiritual front, Woke and Wired is a place that you will really like. And from there, if you are someone who is an entrepreneur and want to feel more confident and connected to your message and how to share it online, whether that's through social media or your podcast or your website, I have online courses that guide you through that in a way that covers not just the physical realm of things to do, but also the energetic realm of stepping into a space where you're actually ready to be seen. So that's just the beginning. Find me on Instagram if you need any pointers. I'm the queen of many Instagram accounts. I'm not saying I'm the queen of Instagram. I'm saying I'm the queen of having probably way more accounts than a human should. And so far, it's going fine, including crystal criminals. So if you're into crystals.
Oh, yeah. So I just want to underscore that this was a great opportunity to go deeper because I have been following Ksenia for really quite a while now. And I'm always just blown away with her ability to juggle all these different hats. And any of these accounts that you follow of hers, you're going to get tons of information to the point. I mean, and also just sharing her life as well. She's right on the cusp of so many movements that are happening at the moment. She's a tiny house, project that she was a part of, and digital nomad, and so there's a little bit of something for everyone, with all of her many different accounts, and you'll learn a lot along the way. So definitely check her out. And just thank you so much for taking the time to share your wisdom and what you're diving deep on right now. And we'll continue to, release more and more information and sharing your journey with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Molly. I'm excited to visit you and your infrared sauna, and I'm excited to learn more about sleep from your podcast.
Absolutely. Yes. As a fellow digital nomad, there's going to be lots of crossover. That's wonderful. And I'm sure I foresee a part 2 in the future down the road because there's just too much here. It's amazing.
And if anyone listening, you're like, I want to know more about this specific thing you guys talked about, let us know.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for your time, and we will be in touch soon.
Thank you, Molly.
You've been listening to the Sleep is a Skill podcast, the #1 podcast for people who want to take their sleep skills to the next level. Every Monday, I send out something that I call Molly's Monday Obsessions, containing everything that I'm obsessing over in the world of sleep. Head on over to sleepisaskill.com to sign up.